This is the video tutorial for lesson 7.6. We're going to look and continue working on our factoring quadratics. This is our third lesson. We're going to review, first of all, some of those key things. So I think the most important thing after the first two lessons is people are normally pretty good at figuring out what the numbers are for these questions, but often the signs that go with them are sometimes the problem. So just that last look again here. So when we have things that end with a positive, we know that we're going to add the factors together. But importantly, we also know that the signs are going to be the same. If you multiply two positives together, you get a positive. But also, if you multiply two negatives together, you also get a positive. So we know the signs must be the same for this. And if we're trying to get something like +6, it makes sense that we want two positives. For the same reason, if we have something where it's -6, then it should also be clear that we need two negatives for this question. And if we look at these two here, you can see the answers down here. So 2 and 4, 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 add 4 is 6. And down here, -2 times -4 is also 8. But -2 add -4 gives us -6. So that's something that's important as we're doing these questions. And the ones that end with the negative, most people realize it means that we're going to subtract the factors, which also means that one of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative as well. To get -10, they can't be the same sign, because if they are, I'd end up with a positive. So I must have one of each sign. So I picked 10 because it's fairly small. Most people think of 5 and 2 pretty quickly. So 5 take away 2 is 3. But if I'm trying to get -3, then obviously I don't want 5 take away 2. But if you switch those over, 2 take away 5 does give you -10. So look at the signs here and you can see them. I got +5 and -2 because 5 take away 2 is 3. And if I switch it over, 2 take away 5 gives me -3. So we just have to be able to pay a lot of attention to those questions, particularly just to make sure that we are picking the right signs, because the answers will be very similar when we do our questions. So just so we can do a little practice of each of the 4 types, depending on whether we have a plus here or a negative here. I've listed the factors to speed this part up for us a little bit. So numbers that multiply to make 24 and then add together to make +10. So it certainly looks like 4 add 6. And you can see that it is indeed 4 add 6. Now I know I want the signs to be the same. And as I'm trying to get a positive number, I made sure that both of these signs were positive as well. So +4 and +6. For our second one, very similar. I want to multiply to make 24, but this time I want to subtract to make 10. And 12 take away 2 seems to work pretty good for this one. And notice the order I said this as well. 12, which is +12, take away 2 gives me my -2, which would give me +10. If I was looking for -10, I would do +2 take away 12. And subtract, but this time the middle number is negative, so I'm still subtracting. I'm trying to make -5, but I'm going to focus on 5 first. So I can see 8 take away 3 gives me 5. Therefore, if I do the opposite way around, 3 take away 8 will give me -5, and that should be good. +3 and -8. Doesn't matter which order you write the answer down. You can either put -8 and +3 or +3 and -8. As long as you have the signs with the correct number, then you're good. And the last one, if I have positive at the end, but a negative in the middle, I'm trying to find numbers that multiply to make 24, but are going to add to make 25, or really -25. So 1 and 24 seems to work pretty good. 1 and 24 is 25. But this time I don't want 25. I want -25. And as the signs have to be the same, I know that means that both of them have to be negative. This is the one where I found a lot of people just tend to put one of each. Now, if you do put one of each, you should know straight away that it's wrong by checking this term here. Like if I do -24, add 1, I get -23, which is not the middle number at all anyway. So do those little checks just to make sure. Is this, add this term here? And if it is, then you know that you're actually doing these correctly. Some of our shorter recap questions, just remember when you're doing questions with x, that it actually means 1x. So this is numbers that times to make 20 and subtract to make -1. So 5 take away 4 is 1. If I do it in reverse, then 4 take away 5 is -1. And there you can see I've got my answer. The one that we don't practice very often at all right now, difference of squares with just 2 terms. Remember, the middle number is 0 for this, x² plus 0x minus 36. So I don't really want to list all the factors for 36. I just want to think which number multiplied by itself gives you 36. If you're not sure, do the square root. Square root of 36 is 6. I know the signs are different here. So once I know it's 6 and 6, I just have a +6 and a -6, and I'm done with that question. And the ones we were doing last lesson in 7.5 are the ones where we took out a GCF. So always check on desmos first. Is there a GCF? So GCF, parentheses, 2 comma negative 18, close parentheses, and you'll find it's 2. Hopefully you might recognize both of these numbers are in the 2 times table as well. So divide by 2, but that means that 2 is part of our answer. So don't forget 2 as a factor. I've already written it down here just to make sure. And the second factor, we just refactor. So x squared minus 9, that's like the previous example, just the 2 terms. Think which number multiplied by itself gives you 9. So 3 and 3. Sign's got to be different now. So 3 and negative 3, and then we're finished. And the one that's probably more typical of the last homework assignment was this one. All these in 5 times table, so divide by 5. Don't forget to put 5 as the GCF, and don't forget that is one of your answers when it says list all the factors. Divide every term by 5, and then we have our 3 terms, and this is the one we've been practicing most of the lesson so far. Numbers that times to make 8 and subtract to make negative 2. So you can make your little list, 1 and 8, 2 and 4, and this one looks good. 4 take away 2 is 2. I want negative 2 though, so 2 take away 4. And then I can fill this one in here. So 2x and negative 4x. As I'm filling in my grid here, I know x times x is x squared, so I might as well fill that in straight away. And then x times negative 4 will give me negative 4x, and x times 2 will give me 2x. Check those middle terms again, just to make sure. 2 add negative 4. Does it give me negative 2, which is what I'm looking for? And the answer is yes, it is. But certainly don't forget that 5 that we had at the start, because otherwise all I get is x squared minus 2x minus 8, not this answer here. There was a few questions for people to practice on in the warm-up. You could pause the video at this point if you wanted to try. The answers are at the end, so I'm going to go straight through to the end. And if you were absent in particular, this will be your little check to see, are you actually doing these questions correct? So there's the answers to 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 as well. And there's the summary of all the answers together if you want to make sure you're doing them correct. If not, you can always stay after to get some additional help. So moving on to today's lesson. This one is slightly different from what we were doing last time. It looks like that GCF question. In fact, you might be thinking straight away, oh, look, 2x squared, let me divide by 2. Now you can try doing that, but notice 5 doesn't divide by 2. So there's actually no GCF for this question. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do this in 2 parts. I'm going to show you how you answer the question once the grid's filled in, and then I'll show you how did I find these terms. So the 2x squared, I can fill that in straight away. The 2, I can fill that in straight away. And I'll explain why I picked 1x and 4x in a little bit. But notice 1x and 4x is 5x. What I haven't explained is here, how did I know it's not 2x and 3x? And we'll come to that in a little bit. I did check the GCF just to make sure. You should always check for GCF. It happens to be 1 this time, so we don't need to divide by 1 because that doesn't do anything. But let's look at how we do this question. So it says use the GCF on the top row, and then we can do all the questions. So we're going to do the GCF here, 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 and here. If you're not good with GCF, just use desmos as we talked about. So as I'm doing this first column here, numbers first, GCF of 1 and 2. A lot of people wanted to say 2 earlier. 2 wouldn't work. So if you count up in 2s, you'd go 2, 4, 6, 8, which wouldn't include 1. So actually the GCF for these numbers are just 1. 1, 2, 3. There we go. We got 1 and 2. GCF for the letters, this is where you do the smaller of the 2. So x squared and x will give you x. For the next row, next column, 4 and 2, they're both in the 2 times table, but they don't both have an x, so this is just a number. And 2, of course, is positive 2. And you might be able to hear my cat in the background who's decided to start meowing really loudly now. On the first row here, 2 and 4 is also in the 2 times table, and x squared and x, the smaller of the 2 is x. 1 and 2, just like earlier, is 1. So my answer to this question is 1x plus 2 times 2x plus 1. Put them in parentheses. And as the GCF is 1x, you should really just put x. Also, don't forget lesson 7.1 and lesson 7.2 also talked about GCF if you need to go back and get some extra help on that. And there you can see the answer in full, and you can see how you would write the answer at the top here as well. So next one. there's my 6x squared, there's my -6. 4 add -9 gives me -5. I'll explain how I knew it was this in a little bit. So why did I know it wasn't, for example, -4x and -1x? We'll talk about that. We'll get there. We're just going to look at filling in the grids first. So GCF of 6 and 4. You're not sure, type it in desmos, but it's 2. X squared and x. That will be x, the smaller of the two. Here's where I have to be a little careful here. -9 and -6, they're both in the 3 times table. But my leading term, my first box I see, has a negative in it. So we have to give this a negative as well. If you do this one on desmos, it'll only say 3. So it's important that we check. Now, actually, I'm going to leave this as 3 just for a second, just so I can show you why that's going to turn out to be the wrong answer as well. So as I'm going across here, 6 and -9. So that will be 3 times table. And x squared and x will be x. The leading term here is positive. So I know my GCF must be positive as well. And for 4 and -6, they're both in the 2 times table. Now, if I check back on my grid here, 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is, oh, not -9. That's the other reason why I know this is going to be -3. So 3 times -3 is -9. 2 times 2 is 4. And 2 times -3 is -6. So we have that little check at the end of questions just to make sure if we did do them correct as well. I did check the GCF. I should have put this probably earlier just to make sure. We always have to check the GCF. It happened to be 1, so it didn't matter for this question. And there you can see that final answer as well. Now, for our last question, I've got the GCF at the start this time. We can see that it's 1, so I don't need to divide by anything. I can just work out where these come from. -17x is -8 add -9. I'll show you why we chose those numbers in a little bit. So going forwards here, as we're doing our GCF here, very tempting to just want to put 2, but it's actually 4. And x squared and x will be x. -9 and 6, I noticed the negative at the start, so I know this is going to be negative. The GCF of 9 and 6 is 3. Going across ways, 12 and -9 is 3 with an x. And -8 and 6, I noticed the leading negative again, so I know this is negative. And 8 and 6 are both in the 2 times table. Use GCF if you're not sure on your calculator. Now, for my people who did put 2x here by accident when they were working through, here's where you want to check anyway. 3 times 2 is 12. Uh-oh. You can quickly spot that something went wrong if you're doing your little check. So if I put 4 in here now, 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times -3 is -9. -2 times 4 is -8. And -2 times -3 is +6. So I can see that I've done this correctly. And then you can see that the answer is written out here as well. If you happen to have 3x minus 2 times 4x minus 3, still correct. That's your commutative rule. You can multiply numbers in any order. Now, there is a couple of questions to practice. You might want to stop the video at this point. I'll leave these 3 here, and then we'll get to the answers. So if you had a practice, this is what you're supposed to get. If you didn't get those, please come and stay after for some additional help. So how did I get those middle numbers? How did I know what to fill in? Now, I'm going to show you the wrong way for this question, first of all. Now, you can check the GCF, and I might have that already here. Yep, it's 1, so I don't need to divide by anything for this question. And then you might just start on, okay, there's my last number, 6. Factors of 1 and 6 are 1 and 6, 2 and 3. And you can see that you got to add together to make 11. And that's not going to work. 1 add 6 is 7. 2 add 3 is 5. So something didn't quite go right here on this question. And the reason is, for questions that start with a number besides 1, we have to multiply the first and the last terms together. So 3 times 6 is 18. Now we do our factors. So factors of 18. Notice I filled in the 3x squared and the 6. I'm just trying to figure out what the rectangles are. So I could have 1 and 18, which adds to make 19. So that's no good. I could have 2 and 9, which does add to make 11. So I'm going to stop right here. I'm trying to get positive 11. So that should be good then. 2x and 9x. If it was negative 11x, I would obviously need -2 and -9. And then now I can do that method with GCF that you saw before. This one also had a factor of 1, so I'm going to go ahead and fill in the grid. Filled in my 2x squared, filled in my -15. So I have to multiply this number with this number. So 2 times -15 is -30. So I want factors of 30 that subtract to make 7. And if you go down your list, you would have 1 and 30, which makes 29. So that's no good. 2 and 15. 15 take away 2 is 13. So no good. and 3 and 10. And there we've got our answer. 10 take away 3 gives me 7. We have to check both ways just to make sure. 3 take away 10 is -7, so I don't want that this time. So I want 10. Take away 3, so this one will be negative. And then now we can use that method we showed earlier. Last one, 4 times 6 is 24. So I want factors of 24. You should always actually try 4 and 6 straight away. We know that they are 2 factors, obviously. 4 and 6 is 10, so it's not for this one. 1 and 24. 2 and 12. These subtract to make 10, so it's not that, but it's close. And 3 and 8. Oh, sorry, I'm adding actually this time. I apologize. 1 add 24 is 25. 2 add 12 is 14. 3 add 8 is 11. So there we go. I am trying to get positive 11, so I do want positive 3. And I want positive 8. So notice for these questions in particular, the use of the grid is really important now. So we can find out the GCF and write it here. We need to know all 4 terms. And that should do it for this video. Make sure you're looking at the relevant exercises. If you have missed any of the questions, if you did want to see the answers to those 3 questions fully completed, you can see them here and here as well. Make sure you do fully complete those previous exercises because it'll really make the questions for this lesson much easier. If you've missed those, it's going to make this all the more difficult. And that does it for this video.